Come on, lean in and let's unpack another uncomfortable conversation with courage, confidence, so that we can gain clarity. I am Dr. Regina Lynn, your clarity advocate, here to directly discuss topics, provide real guidance as we walk through conversations most people avoid, but they cannot afford to ignore. You didn't end up here by accident. The same type of relationship, that same kind of boss, the same cycle of starting over and over and over, and somehow, just somehow, you're landing right where you started. You look up and you think, how did I get here again? Right, again. I did everything differently this time. I promised I was done with this. And yet, here you are again. Today we're going to talk about the why, and I mean really why, not the surface explanation, not the version you keep telling yourself and your best friend, not the ones where you allow everyone else to take the responsibility and not you. We're going to dive deeper in that. You are going to take accountability today because the truth is you have more power in this than you are willing to admit. And that is actually good news. Even though it might not feel like it right now, it's actually good news because you are in control of what keeps happening to you. I want to introduce something new to you that psychiatrists use. I'm not a psychiatrist, neither am I a therapist, but it's a term that I learned in my studies. It is called repetition compulsion. Now, don't get all caught up in the clinical language and don't get scared off. Repetition compulsion is the unconscious tendency to recreate familiar dynamics, even the painful ones, because they feel known, because they are familiar. Even when it hurts, they feel safer than the known. Your nervous system is not trying to hurt you, it's actually trying to protect you by steering you towards what is already known and what you already know how to handle. The problem is it doesn't distinguish between what is good for you and what is familiar. It just knows I've been here before and I know how to navigate this space. I know how to survive in this space. I got this. I know all the rules. So you end up in the same relationship or relationship where someone is emotionally unavailable. Not because you're broken, but because emotional unavailability is something your system has learned to navigate. It's actually learned to navigate this space for a very, very long time. You end up in the same workplace where a dilemma where you like a chaotic boss or a critical boss, not because of luck, but because high pressure, approval seeking environments make you feel like you're at home. It makes you feel more at home than workplaces that are actually functional. Because this is not a permanent condition, we have to name it before we can change it. So we're going to dive in just a little bit deeper and talk about unhealed wounds because they actually create familiar patterns. Here's the thing about wounds. If you never look at them, really look at them, they look like they disappear. They actually go underground or under the skin. And from under the skin, they run your life in ways that you can't even see. Maybe you grew up in a home where love was conditional, where affection came with your performance, your ability to perform well. And when you didn't perform well, that affection disappeared. So now as an adult, you are consistently in the pursuit of approval. You work yourself to exhaustion just to prove your value. You stay in relationships with people who keep you slightly off balance, which keeps them in control. Because for you, that uncertainty feels comfortable. It feels like you're at home. That's what love feels like to you in your younger years. That is the little surface of your heart that feels comfortable for you. Maybe you grew up in chaos, unpredictability, tension in the home. And so even though you do not like chaos at all, you are unconsciously creating and you have a way of finding it because calm, when it's calm, it is unfamiliar to you. It is suspicious. Your nervous system doesn't trust it. None of this is really your fault since this is your childhood and you can't really choose your childhood. You're born into it. But it is your responsibility as an adult to look into it. Let's talk about unconsciously choosing it. I want to gently but directly address something. There is a difference between things just happening and consciously choosing things to happen. And knowing which one you are dealing with is everything. If a company downsizes and let you go, that is no fault of your own. That's just something happening. If you experience a health crisis that you could not predict, that's just something happening. You didn't choose for that to happen. Things in life happen that have nothing to do with your patterns. I'm not here to tell you that everything that's gone wrong in your life is your fault. Well, what I'm actually trying to say is the same situations that keep repeating itself, the same type of partner, the same type of conflict, the same exit pattern from your business or your workplace, the same falling out with the same type of person, that is signaling that something is worth examining, because patterns, they don't lie. They don't lie. That is actually data. And data is pointing to something that inside of you that needs your attention. So here's the question that we should be asking ourselves. What would I have to believe about myself for this situation to make sense? Let's sit in that for a minute. Because somewhere in that answer is a wound that's been running the show the whole time and you don't even know it. I want to stop and pause and discuss 3 signs you are operating in patterns and not just one-time situation. How do you know the difference? Here are 3 signs that you are dealing with a pattern and not just something just happening in your life or a rough patch or just a situation. Number 1, the specifics change, but the feelings still stay the same. The person is different, the job is different, or maybe even the city that you live in is different. But you feel the exact same way, the same anxiety, the same heaviness, the same smallness, the same cycle. However, you end up following with disappointment. Same emotion, different character. That is definitely a pattern. Sign number 2. You already know how this story ends, and somehow you stay anyway. Somewhere early on, you had the feeling, you saw the red flags, whether the flag was red or even amber. But you gave it a pass, you rationalized it, you mentalized it, you said, it's okay, it's because of this. And 3 months later, 3 years later, you're surprised by everything that you sense was coming. That's definitely a pattern. Not just something happening, it is a pattern for sure. Sign number 3. You've told this story before, not just to yourself, not just to your best friend, your sister, or even in the group chat. Maybe you told your therapist. And when you're in the middle of telling it again, you think to yourself, I've told this story before. This sounds familiar. Listen to that part. It's the wisest voice in the room. So, how do we begin to interrupt this cycle of a pattern that we keep finding familiar? Now I want to give you something practical, because awareness without action is just a painful self-awareness. And that's not what we're here to do. The first step in interrupting a cycle is naming it without shame. Now, I'm not trying to say, oh my goodness, you did it again. No, what's wrong with me? But rather, it's okay. I see the pattern. I recognize the pattern. Now I am going to name it, and I am going to find its root. And I am the one with the power to change the next chapter. The second step is to pause before you choose. That moment when an opportunity, a person, or a situation feels immediately familiar and immediately exciting, that's the exact moment to slow down, hold on. Your pattern doesn't typically announce itself. It disguises itself as chemistry, as destiny, as this just feels right. I need you to interrogate that feeling before you move on. I mean, interrogate that feeling. Dig in deep. Ask all the questions, or call me. I'll ask the questions. The third step is to get support you don't already have. If you could have broken the pattern already alone, you would have. Sometimes the most courageous thing you can do is to get a therapist, a coach, or a trusted person who will tell you the truth consistently, lovingly, and without letting you get away with just giving excuses for the situation. The outside perspective is not weakness, it is a strategy to breaking the pattern. You have been circling this mountain long enough. Now it is time for you to climb the mountain and break the patterns that keep you back in the same situations. So let's stop for a minute and reflect. What pattern am I most afraid to look at honestly? Sit with that question for a minute. Write it down. The pattern you're most afraid to name is often the one that's causing the most damage. You don't have to fix it today, but you definitely have to look at it. I want to close by saying something directly to you. The fact that you're still in a pattern doesn't mean that you are weak or you're wrong. It doesn't mean that. What it does mean is you're human and you're carrying something that was put on you before you had the language to name it. The work of this show and the work you are required to do in your life is to pick up that thing, look at it, understand it, and decide, does this come with me into my next chapter or does it stay right here? You are more empowered than you know. You can break the cycle at any moment. So you should definitely do that. Until next time, let's stay courageous, let's stay confident, and let's stay clear. Peace.